Okay, so might get one more. So welcome everyone to this month's Love and Money is on relating and relationships. And about a week ago, maybe it was a week and a half ago, I was thinking about what to do this month, and I had a couple of ideas, waking up and various things, and then it's like, well, holidays are coming up and relating and relationships seems appropriate. I thought, I really don't want to do this. And then internally it's like, really? And so I realized that actually I do have something, there's a way to approach this using all of you have kind of seen the methodologies and practices that I use and some of the kind of foundational models and energetics and things that is a little bit different than kind of conventional approaches to relationships. Almost any relationship book you open starts with describing relationship dynamics, right? Which we're also going to do, right? However, looking at, well, what does it actually take to create the structures, the fundamental structures that mean that relationship dynamics can improve, right? This is what we're going to do, which potentially could shake a few things up. That's maybe not a bad thing, because a lot of the dynamics of how we relate to others is not actually driven by our own energy. So we would do well to figure out why we're collaborating or have been collaborating with holding those in place, and seeing that we may not even need them anymore, given that we've become mostly adults in the room, right? And we might find that we get a level of freedom and ease that's already been practiced as these internal conflicting struggles that are out of date from early developmental times in our lives get resolved and healed. Okay, so let's do this though, just for a moment. Close your eyes, take a breath, put your feet on the floor. And when I say relationships, I mean not necessarily just intimate relationships. They could be, let's call it human relationships. Right. And then just for now, leave the one out, which is the relationship to self. So it's the relationship to other humans, let's leave it at that actually. Could probably extend it to pets and disembodied incarnate entities, but let's start with humans. When people talk about being haunted or troubled, I don't think those are issues. It's the human ones we need to worry about, the ones that are actually in bodies. So just imagine what you think about what you mean by relationships with other people, and feel the felt sense of that in your body. The net superposition of every perspective, every thought, every emotion, every event showing up as a response in this moment, a felt sense response in the body. And continue breathing just gently in and out, without trying to sort anything, without trying to reflect on anything. Just go, what shows up in my body mind system when I think about relating to others and all of your human relationships? And if you find yourself resisting in any way, keep breathing, just gentle breaths in through the nose, out through the nose, or out through the mouth. It's okay. When you're breathing in, you can feel your belly moving or your chest moving, that you actually feel that taking in air. And breathing out, you can feel the muscles that move when you breathe in and out. Notice any secondary emotions, assumptions, judgments, reactions, resistances. And release those as best you can too, which really just means find out what happens when you stop engaging with resisting. And in the time that we're going to spend together today, just consider that there might be some solutions to long-standing relationship dynamics that you just hadn't come across yet. And that all of your life has been building up to this moment, this event with these people here, with these exercises and practices that we don't know what's going to happen. But having openness and permission that what you're bringing to the space is both potential challenges and appreciation for all the relationships in your life, and some unique resolution that you can do today that means that you can also share with others. And now notice the conscious and unconscious felt sense of the interactions and the relationships between us here. Don't have to do anything with that, but just when you move your attention, just getting that felt sense and breathing, ease, relax, release. And then while we're here, just in general, across all relationships, across your life, calling your energy back from any double binds where you thought you had to give your energy away, what you had to be or behave or react or trade. Freedom for connection is normally the biggest one. Freedom for safety. And whatever's ready to let go of in this moment. Just updating and upgrading. When you think about interactions, we're utilizing a level of consciousness of witnessing, loving witnessing awareness that has the effect in the presence of a loving witness, without coercion, without frustration of trying to get some outcome. Consciousness seems to know what to do, to untie, untangle, and sort out seeming contradictions from the past. And then when we're too sure about how others people behave and react, remember that's our map of them. And they may actually be ready to change in any moment. If we can hold open that possibility for yourself and for them, and the system between you can begin to free up and open to new possibility. With that in mind, just very gently open your eyes with all your fingers and toes and have a bit of a stretch. And so what we're going to do in a minute, we'll just get a little bit of input. We won't go around everyone because that'll take an hour. But what we'll do is what we're really looking for, I think, to do this a little bit differently than how normal relationship coaching and training and books is that, quote my mentor, people climb in the kitchen sink in order to do the dishes, right? And we don't need to do that. Okay, it can be fun, it can be messy, you can splash everywhere, but you get what I mean. Pretty much every single relationship training starts with let's get fully identified and embodied with the problem, right? And then let's go from there. Let's tie our hands behind our back and then see what we can do, right? So So that's why I want you to consider approaching this as a little bit different, and we'll find out what happens, right? Whether there is a wisdom and a system within us that knows how to sort some of these things out when we trust it and allow it and give permission. All right. So what are some, actually do this on a piece of paper or on your computer, right? And just finish this sentence in as many different ways as you can, and try and cover the full range of all the perspectives that you can contemplate, which is, first one is, people are. Trying to see who laughs. And see if you can get a kind of way to do this, is a sort of exhaustive list. The minute you write something, let that one go, see what the next thing is, and the next thing, and the next thing. A bit like, in the canteens where the plates pop up, you take the top plate off and the next one pops up, and the next one, and it pops up. It's a bit like that, right? So the minute you've written something down, don't go into it, just put it aside and go to the next one. People are. Try and find all of the different perspectives you've ever had, all of the different states of consciousness you've ever had. Okay. Now, in very early stage development, has everyone done that? Still writing? How long is this? Right, in the early stages of development, in terms of complexity of mind, the first stage is that we don't even know what an other is, right? There's no reflective mind, there's no theory of mind, there's not even theory of mind. And so up until about 3, 4, 5 years old, there's simulated versions of thinking from someone else's perspective, but it's really not possible in a real sense. You could argue with that, but let's just go with that for a second. And so we were trying to get the most I sense, where people in the world are literally just objects to serve our purposes. That's their function. Does that make sense? Right, that's all they are to very young children, a way of meeting their needs. Right. Let's just go with it for a second, right? So what and see if you can do this cleanly without any kind of guilt. And you won't have to read these out if you don't want to. And let's see if we can get an exhaustive list of what I get from others is. So if you could just for a moment cleanly go into the pure, I don't want to use this word narcissistic, but pure I sense, what's in it for me, mind. The child at the store who's less than 5 years old reaches out and just grabs the sweets and gets told off. Or takes it off his friend because he wants it, doesn't understand. He's not doing anything wrong, doesn't understand mine or stealing or any of those things. It's just there's an impulse and they do it. Right. So what's the most mercenary serving you way you can think of what other people do for you? And for some people, this is even a stretch. to understand that you have needs and wants, and it's absolutely right that you recognize that we desire things from others. Whether we actually need them or not is a different issue, but certainly that we want things from others, and we desire things from others. We want them to be there to provide those things. And see if you can get a range from kind of lofty responses to responses that you might be embarrassed by. You won't have to read it out, like I say. Just purely a kind of exhaustive list of this is what I want from someone else, from other people. Okay. In the Reichian rights, the first is the organismic rights is the right to exist, and the second is the right to need and want. And some people have actually, everyone here is pretty good on this. I think we've we've moved through some stages of being able to go, this is what I need, this is what I want, because without the trade of I have to give up myself, which is the right to exist, the first piece, right? That actually you can have needs and wants, and how you go about getting them and whether you express them or not is a different issue. But the very first step is to go, hey, this is what I need and want for other humans, from other humans. All right, so the third is, any prizes for any guesses?
When I give?
Nearly, right? So but I'm going to say it the other way around, right? Which is people pleasers in the group will feel exhausted just by reading the questions. So if so, keep breathing. Yes, even stronger. What they take from me is Izzy, we are just answering these three questions. People are, and then an exhaustive list from every state of consciousness you can think of. So try not to be too lofty, just every answer that comes to mind, just create a list. Second is what I get from others is. And the third is what people want from me is. All right. So right, so just take a breath and ground. Okay. Now, who had that as a purely theoretical questions to answer? No reactions came up, no body sensations, no emotions. If so, like that's a separate sociopath training we need to go. We need to talk about how to be a human, right? But pretty much all of us, these are kind of very foundational elements. And my premise when we go into this next piece, which is what that second article was about, you don't need to read it ahead of time, was that we literally don't have the complexity of mind when we're young to do mediation. I've never seen a 4-year-old say, okay, guys, let's not discuss positions, let's discuss interests. What would you like by having that position? What's your interest? I'd like to tell you mine. No 4-year-old can do that, right? That would be weird, right? However, what's interesting to me is that as we grow up, that these structures still exist, right? That we can answer these questions and they still have these push-pulls, and we haven't gone back, which is what I'm hoping to do, certainly during this month, but probably just by bringing some consciousness to it, you might get some quite dramatic degrees of freedom increase in the moment, because all of this is about disidentification and increasing the degrees of freedom and complexity you need to be able to handle situations that at one time you built a model or a pattern of reality that didn't have those options and choices in it, right? So this is what we're doing, right? At a very visceral body level. Does it make sense? Right? And I'm taking shortcuts because I know a lot of you we've worked together and been with these other quite a bit. Okay, so the first response that most people have when they answer these kinds of questions, or when it comes up in life, is they have a second order response to it, which is something along the lines, it could be anything, right? But something along the lines of, rather than, wow, isn't that interesting and fascinating that I'm so caught up and hooked into this unpleasant experience with this other human, right? That's quite unlikely. It's usually some form of helplessness, frustration, not being able to solve it, second order meaning that comes from, I don't know what to do with this, right? Yes, exactly. Pets are allowed. Actually, cats are the ultimate in teaching independence and individuation. I'm going here now. When will you feed me? Right. Oh, it's a dog. I didn't see. Okay. Didn't I see a cat a second ago? Or am I going mad? Who has a cat? Yeah, I thought I saw a cat somewhere. Okay. All right. So that's the premise. Now, when we went into that and we answered those questions, let's do something with it immediately, right? Because what's holding those things in place is the inability to find a frame of reference within which some seeming polarity or dilemma can be solved. Does that make sense? Right? And most of us try and solve it with our heads. Right. And that's why, and the world and what every relationship book, here's how you solve it. This is the solution. These are the steps. Right. And they only work to the degree that they can undo the energetics, which is why they work some of the time for some of the people. Right. All right. So let's just take a moment to put one hand on your back of your head and thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose and middle finger in the center of the forehead. And notice that when you're answering those questions, some push-pulls came up. And you don't really know how those are set up. You just have to intend to let them be here for a moment. And the second order meaning, which is some part of my system knows how to resolve these things, is the response to that is hopefully the relaxation that allows some of these knots, these tangles in energy to start to untangle, which creates freedom and possibility and creative choice and enhancement and resource and presence. So all of the origins of having set up some relationships in ways that you haven't yet been able to resolve or solve can heal, release, and be treated now. Any of these dynamics that came up that have been around a long time without updating can be integrated, processed, and transcended and included, which is really just in this moment, what we're doing, if you like, is finding a state where we can just temporarily, just for a second, step out of them and then re-engage them from a new place of freedom and ease. And this will work for some of them because we're kind of going globally. And the ones that it doesn't, that's okay. You can relax with that too. Okay, so relax, hands, a bit of a stretch. Okay. Now, who here, and it doesn't need, you don't need any content, who felt some sort of felt shift during that process? Yeah. Right. Anyone didn't? If yeah, even a bit is okay. That's all right, because with these things, most of the strategies that we've used in life is when we're struggling, is when we get into a knot, is to kind of push pull, right, rather than be with both sides of the polarity, which is what we're going to do in a minute. Okay, all right. So I want to go through a few things. I'm kind of bringing them up, and we'll see where we go next, right? But the themes in this series are that we can address some of these things at foundational body level patterns. So I'll come back to this, but essentially the reason these things get held in place is because there's some reality we can't contemplate, right? So, you know, people give themselves away because at some point in their life, the assumption was, if I don't conform and comply to some caregiver or parent, then I'll be devastated or abandoned or left, or, you know, the trade was, I'll give up my freedom for connection, which usually was kind of some form of enmeshment, unless you had like enlightened parents, in which case, what the hell are you doing here? Right. So, all right. So have I got the right page up in terms of some key ideas in relating? Yes. Yeah, good. Okay. All right. So, and we may do this today because it's kind of implicit to this, which is I sent out the link to the safety strategies, which is using TAT pose, or we can use any of the models actually, and going through the 5 primary reactions or responses to stress or threat, right, at a very visceral reptilian limbic amygdala kind of level, which is to attempt to leave the situation is one. Second one is try and grab hold of someone for safety or security or cling to something. The other is hunkering down, like I'm not moving. Right. The next one is to attack, to get aggressive, which is really a response to fear, right? Attack first. And the 5th is rigid, which is just, I'll just pretend like, you know, it's not happening, and I'll limit my inhibitions and limit my movements and motions. So as we were going through the, what do I want from others and what do they want from me? Each of those has the flip side, which is, what if I don't get what I think I need from others? Because some of those are preferences, some of them are wants, some of them are needs. Let's call them needs. What if I don't get what I need from others? Right? That keeps the dynamic in place. And the other is, what if I don't give others what I want? These are the structural polarities or opposites. Yeah. Right. And so if the charge on both sides starts to become more and more neutral, then we return to choice. It doesn't actually say anything about what we have to do or not do, right? So most people won't give up their attachments because they assume if I give up this position I'm attached to, I have to do the opposite. And that's not true, right? So we've got to learn that we can release our attachments and our holding and binding onto specific positions. And then what happens is the next step is centeredness, groundedness, presence. And then all of your executive function can come online, and then you can have choice. Right? This is a key foundation in terms of, and I'll go into it later